Hey there, Chump Nation. John here. Before we get to today's episode, we've got a brief sponsored plug for you. This one comes courtesy of a good friend of mine here in Tucson by the name of Nick Lang. He's been working on a Substack for the past few years called Chomp Theology, which is all about big theological ideas compressed into easy, bite-sized articles. He's got some great stuff on there, and if learning theology is your thing, and I bet it is, I think you'll really enjoy it. It's free to subscribe if you want, or you could pay for additional content if you'd like to support the work. We've got a link for Chomp Theology in our show notes, so be sure to check it out. Thanks, gang. Now let's get on with the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to Church History for Chumps. My name is John Simon, and I'm here with
Thomas Duo.
Taylor Treadway.
All right. I'm feeling
Welcome back.
I'm a little sniffly today, you guys. So I'm not in the driver's seat, dear listener.
You sound horrible.
Okay, all right. That's really.
I can
hurtful.
tell just from looking at you. You sound. You look horrible. You sound horrible.
You got the man flu.
Yeah, that's the worst. I think that, you know how the Bible says that childbirth is like one of the problems. It's one of like the curses for women. Like it's gonna be really painful.
It also says it's how women are to be saved.
Okay, that's probably neither here
not
nor
following
there.
that
That's
one.
Weird. I was referencing the Bible, Thomas. But no, I think there's actually some old Hebrew transcripts that originally said that one of the curses that men would carry is that they would experience colds and flus significantly worse than women. I only have anecdotal evidence, but I feel pretty good about saying that.
That was some classic John Simon. You know, I was listening back to one of our episodes recently, which I don't do often, by the way. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I never listen to our episodes, but I was listening back to the Welch's grape juice one.
Oh yeah.
And I tried my best to do a John Simon joke, and I was listening back. It was actually pretty good because
Your
I said,
joke?
yeah. So like Thomas Bramwell Welch was born in, like, I forget the year, but it's like, you know, he was born on like December 31st, 1857. And I said to you, I was like, you know what they say about Thomas Bramwell Welch, right? And you're like, what? Was almost born in 1858. And it was kind of flat, just like right now. And I was like, this is my best attempt at a John Simon joke.
I listen to every one of our episodes that we record, and I want to be completely honest for why.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find myself amusing.
Gosh, dang, man.
You're just driving to work, just busting your butt.
Dude.
That's hilarious, dude.
I'm actually, I kind of meme about it at work, but I'm purposely a tool. Like in class, I'll be like, yeah, we were discussing this on my podcast. Also, I have a podcast. Church History for Chumps. Give us 5 stars. Or like a new episode drops on Tuesday morning, and I will literally shout from my desk, "New Church History for Chumps is up!" And like the sweet old ladies in the office are like, "Taylor, can you send me the link?"
Oh, that's awesome.
Taylor, I'm going to make you a t-shirt, and it's just going to be the QR code.
Dude, I would wear it.
And it's going to be
like, what's this? Just look. It's not safe for work, okay? Just trust me, bro.
That's right. You're gonna want to look at this in private, my friend. Oh my gosh, dude.
Well,
Taylor,
I finished
you were
school,
talking
boys.
about. Oh, that's right. You were talking about this conversation you had with your church history professor.
Oh, yes. I asked Dr. Chun if you've been following along. We've actually had a few instances in the last few episodes where you have people being baptized after they've been elected to be a bishop. So we saw that with Ambrose of Milan, and then we saw it with like the guy who was put into the see of Constantinople, Nectarius, gets baptized after being put in charge of the entire council. So it was kind of a big position. And I asked him, and he said, well, Taylor, we don't have time to get into this whole thing, but essentially he said this verbatim: John Simon was right in his guess.
I guess I was right in my academic research.
Yeah, people back then were like, baptism for the remission of sins. So I'm going to hold off as long as I can before I get dunked.
You know, it really does make me think.
That baby baptism wasn't a practice until much later in church history.
It makes me think, you know, I've been baptized already. I'm wondering if I can speak to the right authority who could annul that baptism, because I really think this whole wait until the end might have some. I'm
halfway through an MDiv.
I think we should have Dr. Chun on one of these days. We call it Church History for Chuns.
Whoa,
I'm
that's
trying.
good. We only make it for his family members.
I'm trying to get some of my professors on. We just got to keep pushing, boys.
Yeah.
Say a prayer.
Dude,
Say a prayer, chumpies, if you want to hear from the experts. Otherwise, you just got us.
Yeah, it's really just the three of us, and none of us are really experts in anything except for alternative smoking methods.
I do like a hookah.
All right. Well, I feel like we're drying up, dude. I'm sick. Thomas is fried. Taylor's,
I feel great.
Taylor's exhausted from all the chat GPT prompts he's been inputting for his MDiv.
I don't. Okay, first off, ChatGPT is an excellent research assistant. But I will say this about my homework as we land the plane on bantering for you, Ewan. For you. If I never have to read another German theologian again, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Martin Luther either, man.
No, I mean like the post-Enlightenment guys.
The super scholastics.
Schleiermacher.
Schleiermacher. Well, he started it all. Well, yeah, basically. Bart came along. He's fine.
Wasn't he Swiss?
Yeah, but he was in Germany.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like Bart. Bart seems cool.
Well, he had a little, his secretary lived with them.
Right.
And was like, basically, they had a little love triangle going on.
Wife too?
Yes, essentially. So,
here's the thing. When you look back on the personal lives of theologians that you like, it's like rolling. It's like in D&D when you have to like roll one of the like a D100 for like a negative impairment. It's like, oh, I got my arm cut off, or oh, I walk with a limp now. Like, it's gonna be bad. It's just gonna be some scale, a sliding scale of bad. Do you want your favorite theologian to be in a throuple, or own slaves, or fight for slavery?
Look, there are theologians now that are qualified men of God.
So we think.
I don't think it's going to come out that Kevin Van Hooser was like secretly beating his assistants or something. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, man.
I know Dr. Van Hooser listens to this, so I just want you to say I'm a fan, sir.
Well, you guys ready to dive in? Now that we've reached the point in the show where Taylor's just stroking the ego of some of our listeners.
Please listen to my show.
Dr. Van Hooser does not listen to our podcast.
I was going to say, I was nervous for a second, but then I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. Yeah, Tommy, take us away. Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
All right. So we've been rocking some 3rd, 4th century stories. And I came across this one this week, actually, and it was kind of blowing my mind. I had not heard of this. Have either of you guys come across the Circumcellions?
Oh, yeah. The North African dudes
okay, don't give it away.
The North Africans. I know all about them. I know all about them.
The North.
Yeah. Like, I know so much, though, but I just want you to tell me so that I can confirm that the things that I know, like that you know the things that I know.
This is frustrating because Taylor doesn't know anything. I actually know things, and I don't want to be lumped in. All right,
so
whatever.
You just had
North
to make
Africans.
a guess.
You just guessed.
Just off of the name, what do you think the Circumcellions liked to do?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think, Taylor?
They like circumnavigated the globe.
They were
Obviously.
world travelers. That's right.
They were proto world travelers. They actually are how Jesus got to the Native Americans.
So here's the thing, Tay. This is actually really interesting. When we know how in the book of Galatians, Paul says, you guys don't have to be circumcised anymore. Christians that were circumcised before that letter came out were called Circumcellions. Am I right, Thomas? Okay,
Was I closer? Was I closer?
It'd be fun. It'd be fun if this did have something to do with circumcision, but it doesn't. But it is still pretty wild. Like this is on par with some of our like folk saint episodes, except this actually happened. Like this is not pseudo history. It's just really weird. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna paint a picture for you. Here's our cold open. Picture this. You are a Roman soldier in the 4th century. You grew up in Italy.
Do I have a sword?
You do have a sword, for sure.
Okay.
I want a scimitar.
All right. John's got a scimitar. Taylor's got a broadsword.
Okay, all right. Give Taylor a two-handed weapon, please.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Plus 8 damage.
So you grew up in Italy. But now that you're a big boy Roman soldier, you've been sent on assignment with your cohort to the shores of North Africa. Your destination is Carthage. Along the way, you stopped the island of Malta, future global super hub of church history for Chumps fandom.
Let's go. All right.
Yeah. You grab a pina colada or whatever they serve in Malta. And you get back on the Navis Lusoria or the Quinquereme. I googled Roman troop carrying boats, and you head to Carthage. And in Carthage, it's not a bad place. You've got the sea, you've got seafood, you've got a lot of sunny days. There's a little bit of political tension going on because of there's these Donatists that you've heard about.
I roll to attack the Donatists.
Roll for initiative.
That was right away. And they're kind of radical, but they also seem to make some sense. But what do you know? You're a Roman pagan. But
okay,
you're even thinking about becoming one of these Christians.
Ooh.
So one of these days you're patrolling the countryside around Carthage. And all of a sudden, this kind of fat, hippie-looking dude runs out from behind a rock, and he hits you not on the head, but just kind of in your thigh with a club. And he says, "Praise the Lord," when he does it.
Okay.
And you look at him and you go, well, you're a Roman soldier, so I don't know. What would you do if you were a Roman soldier?
I roll to attack the fat hippie.
Well, if he is he going to run away? Because that would provoke.
He's not running away. He hit you. He hit you one time with the club, and now he's just standing there. This is kind of like a D&D.
Okay,
it really does.
He hits you one time with the club, and then he just stands there, just kind of like phasing, kind of like a non-play, an NPC. He's just standing there, just kind of doing his little side to side, like, what you gonna do about it? What do you do?
How many first level spell slots do I have?
Well,
you said I was a pagan.
The Roman soldier,
I probably know
none.
something.
If it's me as a pagan Roman soldier, I'm running my spear right through his gut.
Yeah, I'm probably unironically just gonna kill him.
Yep. Well, so far, as absurd as this sounds, this has been real history, and that's exactly what happened.
They killed him.
Roman soldier kills the dude, and you get back to your fortress in Carthage, and you say, "What was that about?" to the other guys, the other Roman soldiers. And they're like, "Oh, that was one of those Circumcellions." And thus is the weird tale of the Circumcellions. So Circumcellion is it's like two phrases put together. Basically, it's like those who. So Taylor was actually closer with his idea of circumnavigating the globe.
No way.
Still wrong. Still super
Eat
wrong.
it, John Simon.
I knew what I said. North Africa. I was right.
The circumcell, it's like those who circled the cellar or those who circled the larder. They were like, it was like this derogatory term that was given to, honestly, kind of lazy hippie Christians that, if you go all the way back in the halls of CH4C time to our very first episode when we talked about the Desert Fathers. And we talked about how the Desert Fathers, who right around the same time, Christianity has been legalized in the empire after a season of intense persecution. And some people in North Africa go, we kind of had a cool witness going. How about we make these like communities where we draw near together. We build kind of like this like parallel system outside of the system, and it'll be a witness to the watching world, and it works. Well, you got those guys, you got the Desert Fathers, and then you got these other guys in North Africa who are like, how about we die? But since we're not being persecuted anymore, let's just go be as much of a nuisance as possible to get killed. And if they don't kill us, if we can't find anybody to kill us, we'll throw ourselves off of the cliffs. And that's what these people would do. They would
kill themselves.
They would. It was a suicide cult. So legitimately a suicide cult. They wanted martyrdom so bad that they would literally, this is funny too. They carried these clubs, and I have not been able to find out why, but they called their clubs Israelites. And they had heard of Matthew 26:52 when Jesus says to Peter, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword," which doesn't make sense to me because they wanted to die by the sword, but in any case, they were like quasi-pacifists where
they didn't draw the sword.
Yep,
Tommy, they didn't draw it.
We're gonna only use these clubs. Apparently, they didn't hear Luke 22:36, where Jesus said, "If you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." I don't know. They just didn't have access to Luke, apparently.
I don't know if these guys were the most, profound exegetes of their time.
Yeah. It's interesting. It was kind of like they were like an offshoot of the Donatists. Like the Donatists were kind of radical. When we did a Donatism episode, didn't we, John?
We did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Donatists were like kind of revolutionary in a way. Like they were really angry, really kind of like, I don't know, the punk rock angsty Christians of North Africa who just really had beef with any bishop that had basically recanted the faith in order to protect their lives.
They were the original cage stagers, I think.
Yeah,
because they were the ones who were like, no one's a real Christian except for us, which I think is maybe the most defining symptom of being a cage stager. Is you have
they would have gotten along in the Reformed pub. Like they would have loved the Reformed.
They would have been like, dude, finally someone's standing up for something. Am I right?
A pox on the Reformed pub, by the way. Also, did you meet your wife in the Reformed pub? What was up with that?
Oh, come on. Yes.
Okay. I mean, props. That's the best thing. It was an offshoot
of the. It was an offshoot of the Reformed pub.
That's the best thing I've ever heard out of the Reformed pub.
Aw,
I love it.
Thanks.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, the story that I told was like real. I mean, they would literally go try to find Roman soldiers, and if they couldn't find a Roman soldier, they would find like a well-armed traveler, and they would go up and they would just like run up to these people and club them, and they would say, "Praise the Lord." Now, they didn't like the term Circumcellions. Their preference, they like to be known as
Calvary Chapel.
Yeah, I'll reach up. Agonistisi, which is fighters for Christ.
That sounds way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys remind me of the Zealots a little bit.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Like the Zealots from Jesus's era, who were kind of these pro Israel, like hardcore Pharisees who were like, yeah, we've got to take down Rome. The foot of Rome is again. But I guess like the problem is like, it's like they're kind of rebels without a cause because they want to be martyred. But I'm imagining at this point, especially because I saw Augustine mentioned with some of this, like Christianity is legal now. So who's gonna persecute you when like everybody's Christian? So
they
it's like they're looking for it.
They like ran out of people to persecute them.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of sad. I mean, you see this popping up at different times in church history where like people, this seems to happen when you have a lack of discipleship going on and people get a really weird idea of like what genuine Christianity is. Even what the Desert Fathers did, I mean, we kind of chopped it up when we did that episode, but like, you know, when so much of Christian identity for, you know, 150 years was being martyred, it does kind of create a vacuum when that goes away of like, well, what does authentic faith look like? And so you ended up with these guys. I mean, something tells me they were young, disenchanted men. And I mean, they probably woke. I mean, if they live today, their hardest decision waking up in the morning is: do I put on a not of this world tank top or a tap out tank top?
Oh man, yeah. These guys definitely seem like young, jaded, but weirdly, like I don't know, they're like suicidal. I mean, this is like. Do we have any like teachings from like Circumcellion leaders around? Like I noticed there's not a whole lot of information I'm seeing online about these guys.
No, there's not. And it seems like maybe they saw themselves as connected with the Donatists, maybe, but the Donatists denounced them.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Donatists weren't out to get themselves killed. The Donatists felt like they were the surviving branch of the church because the rest of the church up in northern Rome had gone either soft or compromised. So the Donatists weren't going to try and go out and kill themselves. So yeah, it would make sense the Donatists wouldn't really affiliate with these Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I think Augustine was against them. And like every single suicide cult that's ever existed, they died out.
Didn't last too long. Yeah.
You know, this phenomena is even happens recently. I was at a conference on how to evangelize to Muslims, and the keynote speaker was telling a story. This guy has done a lot of work in the Middle East in like very hostile areas, and he was saying that he would convert guys from Al-Qaeda and they would become Christians and they would be so on fire for the Lord that they would like start looking for opportunities for them to be martyred.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Like they would look and he would have to tell them like, listen, martyrdom, it is fantastic. You're willing to die for Jesus, but don't go out of your way to make it happen.
Yeah. That honestly, that's actually really, really fascinating. And I think that is probably how we can crack into the heads of these dudes, is because I would imagine in very Islamic areas, martyrdom has a much higher cultural value than here in the West, where like if you started a church in the burbs and you started this like small group where you were like, all right, everybody, just so you know, the best thing that can happen is when you're persecuted and your rights are taken away and your life is made miserable and all your comfort is gone and you die miserable and alone. People be like, I don't think so. Like, because that clashes with a ton of like things that we care about. But if you're like, I mean, I could imagine like, I mean, let's say you actually came from a very radical Islamic movement, then yeah, understanding Christ, but still having that context of like the best thing I can do for the God that I serve is to give everything in this blaze of glory. I could totally see how that would make sense for someone in that mindset.
The problem is these guys are going out of their way, like significantly out of their way to try to make this happen.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend there's not some very evident cognitive dissonance happening here, but right. I don't know. I mean, just like Tommy had said, like one of the reasons why the Desert Fathers grew and why just ascetic practices grew during this time is because people felt this attraction towards how do we slay our flesh and show God that we are willing to lose everything if not through martyrdom. Like there was still that kind of compulsion, and we don't really resonate with that in this day and age.
I think you hear other. Oh, go ahead, Tommy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think of Paul in Galatians when he's talking about the fruit of the Spirit. He says, "Against such things there is no law," and in other parts of the apostolic teaching, we see that like being persecuted for being a jerk is not the same thing as being persecuted for loving Christ. And it seems like I guess that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, so I'm going to hold off on making any further comments, but what in your guys' understanding, when we look, we see kind of a slew of martyrdom in the early church, but then we see it throughout church history. I mean, there's going to be some obvious distinctions between these weirdos and I almost said circumcision, martyrdom. What distinguishes like genuine martyrdom in your mind when you think of, martyrdom? Well, what makes martyrdom genuine?
I think we have to define what being a jerk is, because I'm sure there's somebody that would claim that the apostles were jerks.
So thinking of like this fruit of the Spirit, if you were, he talks about the acts of the flesh right before the fruit of the Spirit. And so he's talking about sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I would say anything that like even sniffs of that. If that's where if you're going against the grain of the people around you, if you're becoming a nuisance to the people around you, acting out of the flesh, then that would be being a jerk. Whereas if acting in the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit is putting you at odds with the culture around you, that's different.
Okay.
So your question is like what distinguishes, like what counts as martyrdom, I guess?
Yeah, like what are the ingredients that you would want to see for martyrdom to be faithful, I guess? And not just like this suicide mission.
Yeah.
Proclamation of the gospel is probably the key ingredient. That's going to be the stake there.
Yeah. I think a willing laying down of like, I think, if Christ is the perfect example of a martyr, Christ had the opportunity to defend himself both in word and in action and resigned both. So I think martyrs aren't typically like spoils of war. I think a martyr is someone who, in some capacity, lays their life down voluntarily. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you get arrested for being a pastor in like North Korea and you're scheduled to be executed, that's not voluntary. But I suppose it was voluntary that you took up that mantle in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I think voluntary in a way that, like, I don't know. That's where it gets tricky because there's so many different contexts here, right? Like, I often think of Martin Luther and Zwingli, the reformers, and how Zwingli up in Switzerland kind of went out fighting when the Catholics, I think it was the Spanish, who kind of like formed a legion against the Protestants there and took them out. And Zwingli like kind of took up arms and fought to the death. And I remember Luther basically writing that like he was ashamed of that. Like he felt like if Zwingli really wanted to go out and represent Christ in his death, he should not have tried to fight. He should have laid down. So I don't know. I'm not sure where that fits. I mean, I agree. I think that your example of a North Korean pastor certainly fits that of a martyr.
I think it's also important to draw a distinction that I think there's times when men are called to die, and it's like outside of the kind of bounds that we would typically think of for martyrdom. So I honestly I don't think that martyrdom is like the normative goal for the Christian life.
Sure.
And when you find, but when it happens, it is a high honor. I mean, we see like in even right now, this very moment in heaven, there is like a special place for those who have been martyred for the faith. So obviously God has a standard for martyrdom, because they are distinguished amongst the saints even now, waiting for the resurrection. But there's things that I think like men will be called to die. Like I think of like in cases of like war, where men are fighting for their country. And war is always complex, right? There's, all sorts of different reasons. Oftentimes the men fighting in wars are not the ones who started the wars, but they may have convictions. And in a sense, there's like a touch of martyrdom there where, especially the religious wars, where these men are dying, trying to be faithful to what they think is true. But even that is different than like, I think, Polycarp is like the penultimate, right? Other than like Stephen, you got like Jesus, Stephen, and then Polycarp, where just, like you said, I like what you said, Taylor, of having the gospel being proclaimed as a distinguishing mark of a true martyr. All three of those men, that's a very clear ingredient there.
Yeah, and they didn't even want to kill Polycarp.
I know, they were like, please,
we don't want to. Come on, old man, just say the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ignatius.
I'm not sure if a soldier
like
can be a
too,
martyr. Right? I don't know. I'll just drop that bomb and leave it. I don't know. Can a soldier
Soldiers?
be a
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think it depends on what the circumstances of the war are.
Yeah, I mean, World War II, fighting the Nazis, martyrs.
I don't know. That one's more complex, but I'm thinking more of like maybe like some of the righteous crusades. When your Christian nation is under attack, under threat of Muslim invasion that's going to completely ravage your country, and you go to war and die for that. Like, to me, there's like a touch of martyrdom there. It's really different than, like you said, that I really, actually, the more I think about it, the more I really like Taylor's distinction of the gospel being proclaimed.
Right.
But there is something different between, a soldier that dies in a war that's all about, borders or something like that, as opposed to a soldier that dies to protect a Christian nation against, a violent, pillaging horde that's coming to absolutely decimate your family's town.
I mean, C.S. Lewis touches on this in Abolition of Man, where he talks a little bit about, calls it the Tao, but basically this like bigger picture would be like the layman's terms of like a call to something bigger than yourself. And when you lose that, you actually lose the ability to rally people to be willing to die.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Is like all of us, I think, just by having the Imago Dei, are compelled by something bigger than ourselves if we're to act any kind of virtue. Like a person who's not a Christian can lay their life down defending their family and not be a martyr. And I think a Christian can defend their family and lay their life down and die and also not be a martyr. Because, I mean, when we think about it, we're all expending our life force on, like, every Christian, and this is why something that you said a long time ago, Tommy, that's always stuck out. It's like the term martyr just means a witness. So all of us are going to be martyrs to some varying degree because we're all steadily expending our life forces, whether it takes 5 seconds before a crucifix or whether it takes 5 decades, just, loving, caring, supporting, like we're all expending our life on the good of the gospel. But yeah, I don't know. There's lots of people who will be martyrs of good things who may not be martyrs of Christ, which is why I'm not even sure there's a necessary distinction when I think about it, because I don't know, is there that big of a difference in piety between someone who does have that 10 seconds of faith before their head's blown off versus the person who slowly and begrudgingly commits to the good work of a Christian saint until they die of natural causes? Like, well, I don't know.
You're taking away from true martyrdom when you do that.
No, talk to me. I mean, I'm questioning.
So
I'm being curious.
We're all thinking out loud here. So
yeah,
if you equate a slow sacrificial Christian life, which is what every Christian is called to do, with martyrdom, if you even put it on the same spectrum, I think that lessens what real martyrdom is.
How come, though?
Because the person who is dying because they proclaimed the gospel, being killed by, as John would write in the epistles, an antichrist, being killed by an antichrist, essentially, for sharing the gospel, that's not the same as slowly wasting away and shedding your mortal coil.
This kind of gets back to the Circumcellions in a way, because I mean, the Circumcellions were taking what Taylor's saying and like adding, it's on steroids. Like, they understood that there was some sort of difference between growing old and living a faithful Christian life for decades and decades, and the glory that comes from dying in flames or on a cross. But therein lies the rub, right? Because is it really glory if you sought it out and you tried to make it happen?
No.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I mean, and I am totally thinking out loud here, and I certainly don't want to strip away any of the value and beauty of the martyrs, because I mean, I still very much believe, I think it was Tertullian who said that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. But yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned this before. I'm a hospice chaplain, so I see death every day. I've never had a patient who was a martyr, of course, so I'm kind of skewed to one side. But it's like, I've seen just how long and tedious and painful death can be, even when the body kind of runs its natural course. And I guess there is kind of a little bit of, I mean, I'm certainly not questioning the scriptures or the Lord when he says that there is greater value or greater glory to be a martyr than not to be. But I guess I am still thinking, like, it's really hard to be a Christian until you're 85 and then spend your last 5 years dying of dementia. Like, that sucks. I'll be honest. I think that person would have probably taken 10 minutes burning at the stake in their early 30s than have gone through a life of suffering and tribulation, you know? So
I hear what you're saying, and I want to affirm something good that I'm hearing, which is that we should really acknowledge it as a really good thing when someone is able to live to 90 years old and not get their head chopped off. Not to be crass, but I mean, like, that, honestly, that's a really good thing. And in fact, so I was talking earlier about how in heaven, the martyrs are distinguished, but even in their being distinguished, they're crying out, "How long, O Lord, until you make this right?" There's a supreme injustice in being beheaded or being crucified or being whatever for your faith, and it doesn't change the value of a Christian life at all to live faithfully. I mean, there's so many people, thanks be to God, in history who have been able to live in places that have been salted by the gospel, particularly in the West, who have lived their whole lives and never experienced serious persecution of any form, and that's a good thing. That doesn't detract from their value in Christ. It doesn't detract from the honor that is due to them, because we know that, like, the greatest enemy that we have is oftentimes not even the enemy that's outside of us, but is actually our own flesh. And so those people that you're ministering to that are dying in hospice now, they've had wars to fight as well. It's just been different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the longevity, long suffering, and having a long life of Christian servitude is very commendable. And I'd say it's a beautiful thing. I just think it's separate than martyrdom, being like having a gun pointed at you, or in, any other case, just recant this and you don't have to go to the gallows tomorrow, and saying, nope, I'm not gonna recant it.
Yeah.
I think it's different.
Yeah, I do get that. I do get it. I think, and again, this is just me questioning. This is just me thinking out loud, but it reminds me of, like, a dude who can make, it's like the difference between an artist who can make one really good album in their 20s and then someone who consistently makes good music for a very long stretch of a career. It just feels like two very different things. Like, sometimes, I mean, I don't know. I'm certainly not trying to discredit the martyrs. I think
you're trying to elevate. You're trying to elevate what you witness on a daily basis, which I do not blame you for that, and I think that is, it's a good thing. We don't want to discredit that or take away from that, and we should look to people who have spent their whole lives serving as Christians. I think we should look to them as examples for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, look at some of the patriarchs in Scripture. Some of these guys who lived for a really long time, and they're distinguished for their faith, for just a long life of faith. They weren't martyred, and it's like different. How do we put it? It's like a flower that has different colored petals. Mm-hmm. And you've got the red ring of petals, and then you've got the blue ring of petals that accents it. And to pit them against you, which one's better, the red or the blue petals? No, like, it's all part of one beautiful picture of what God is doing.
One beautiful tulip.
Mm.
Yep.
Well, I think that's some of. Yeah, I mean, because I guess I still think about, like, the Circumcellions had this, I think we can all agree, this misplaced and over embellished idea of martyrdom, And they didn't like. I think if you're discipling a young guy who's just like, yeah, man, I just want to go like shove a cop so that he can shoot me dead, and so I can go and live with the martyrs in heaven, you'd be like, actually, Johnny, I think you might just need the long life of serving Christ. You're probably not going to get to go out in a blaze of glory. Like, I think like there is this blaze of glory that kind of attracts us to the martyr life and to the martyr story. But I guess there is something in me that makes me wonder how, I don't know, how valuable, not how valuable it is to be a martyr, but how valuable it is to seek out martyrdom. Because I mean, I don't know. I think we could argue that happens even in our context, this exaggerated kind of how we portray or how we demonstrate the suffering that we have to go through, and whether it's persecution. I don't know. I'm thinking.
I know Thomas is a Presbyterian and doesn't believe in missions, so he doesn't really have a framework for this. But in the Southern Baptist world, the IMB tries its best to. It will not send people to places that are extremely dangerous. It just won't. So there's some ethic system in place there where it's like we want to preserve life, and I think if it becomes safer, then they view it as the Lord opening the door. But they're not just grabbing their missionaries and saying, "All right, straight into the mountains of Afghanistan you go."
Right. Right.
So there's a line. This is a good conversation because it's like, how do you determine that line? Because if I looked at you guys and said, I'm getting ready to go to Ethiopia next week, which I'm going to be in Addis Ababa, which is like the capital. It's going to be perfectly safe. But if I was like, I'm going to get in a truck and go up into Sudan and find like the Muslim extremists there,
I'd give you gas money.
That's just because you want me off your podcast. John Simon.
The spot's back for me, baby. Two-man pod. Later, Taylor.
The rationale, though, you'd probably be like, what? No, you're going to leave your wife? Why? What's wrong? You have a suicide mission in mind here, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was hesitant. I thought about it. I was like, do I bring this kid up? I'm going to bring him up. The kid who went up to the North Sentinelese.
Oh, John something. John Cho?
Yeah. And, I mean, it's like, is he a martyr? Yes.
So I obviously know all about whatever you're talking about, but for our listeners who don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, dude, I'm sure you heard about this story. This was very, very controversial. This was like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. Dude who, and I've listened to a lot about this guy, so I'm probably going to get it wrong. I think his name was John Cho, missionary.
That sounds right.
But I'm going to check. His name, John Allen Chow. He was an American dude. I think he was from California. He was a Christian missionary, and he basically sailed out to the North Sentinelese Islands, which is an island off the coast of India, where it's basically just an indigenous population living there. There are very, very strict rules about contact that can be made with them.
No contact.
Because one, there's like this whole sense of we want to preserve their culture because they have the right to exist autonomously. But there's also the sense of like on a biological level, they may not have any of the protective antibodies that could, and there could basically be like a plague.
That's fascinating.
So this dude was like, I feel like the Holy Spirit's drawing me to this people. He kind of went through some backdoor ways of getting there. He took a boat. I think he made contact at the beach one time, and he was like, he brought some medical supplies with him. He was like gonna live there and learn the language and stuff. I think he made contact with people, and they were a little agitated, and then I think he left, and on his trip back, this is probably not the perfect timeline, he was basically attacked the second time he got there, and he was killed. And this was this huge controversy of, is this reckless missionary work? Is this good for the gospel? I don't think the dude had backing from the missions agency he had worked with.
He didn't have backing from anybody. He was entirely solo. So that does go to show, okay, there's something off there. It was reckless, but also the world is like I remember reading articles that are like, this is just imperialism. Let them be. And like the Christian response is like, what? Let them just like exist in their unfettered depravity. Like they are a culture that has like never been touched by the gospel. So
honestly, this should be a whole episode. We should come back and do this whole thing. No. I mean, we're 50 minutes in. I feel like we need to do a proper deep dive of this guy, because his story is interesting. Because I do remember, like, it wasn't quite as simple as him being like this reckless dork. Like, he was really well loved where he came from. He did do a lot of prep work.
He did. He did.
Yeah. It was very controversial, but it was mostly controversial because the people talking about it were not Christians. And I think a lot of Christians who knew more about his story had more to contribute. But of course, on MSNBC, they're going to be like, yeah, this dude sucks and was an agent of imperialism. I don't know. A lot of stuff there.
Yeah. I'm going to throw Taylor a bone here and say that I think the congregational polity or congregational life kind of solves these questions here, where we see. I was trying to rack my brain. I'm thinking about, like, in the New Testament in particular, after Pentecost, where do we see examples of like really radical mission work going on? And we do see Paul going into contexts that are like, I mean, where there's even people going like, please don't do this. Like this isn't going to go well.
I mean, they stoned him once,
and he does it anyway. Not all of it is canonized in scripture, but I mean, we do know that some of the apostles went into some pretty rough places to spread the gospel in the first century. But the thing that we see as the common thread is that there's always like the local church sending someone. And so as I'm thinking about this, I don't think I have a problem with someone, and I'm thinking specifically of a single man. I do have big questions and qualms about married men with children going into dangerous places. But in particular, like single men, I think we can send them anywhere as long as the church is behind this. And I'm thinking specifically the local church, and there's a calculated decision going on. So I definitely think we should do an episode on this guy, because I think it would be really fascinating to kind of dive into the ethics of it.
Yeah.
Missiology is very broad and has tons of varying opinions. Like at the school, we had we had their conference a couple weeks ago, and I was just looking at all of them thinking, like, these are all the academic missiologists, like, in ETS. And they were like in the room next to me, and I'm like looking into the room going, every single one of them has a very different, nuanced opinion on what a short-term mission trip should be.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm glad that I get the sense that we as Christians have asked a lot of good questions about what healthy mission work looks like, because I feel like for much of the 20th century, I don't know, missions was kind of in a little bit of a rut, and I think there needed to be some important questions asked about like what healthy mission work looked like. So I don't know. I feel like there are people who are asking good questions, and I feel like there's good stuff that happens out of those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for traveling down a weird little side path. I think there's not a whole lot of historical significance to these guys, but I think it does kind of spur these really interesting kind of modern cultural ethical questions. So thanks for chopping it up.
Well, it's why you study church history, right?
That's a good point.
You study the past to look forward to the future.
The man who doesn't know his past is doomed to repeat it. Right, Taylor?
John Simon, Wayne Gretzky.
Was that the turtle? Was that the turtle from Kung Fu Panda?
That was the big dinosaur in The Land Before Time.
Oh.
Ironic, am I right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Nobody's repeating dinosaur history anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you're John Hammond.
Get good. Spare no expense.
Spare no expense. All right, team. Well, good stuff, boys.
Yep.
Thank you guys for listening to us. If you're not, please follow us wherever you listen, because when we see that we get followers, then we're like, oh, that means people like what we're doing, and then we'll keep doing it. Otherwise, we'll stop. You'll never hear from us again. Okay?
Leave us a 5-star review.
Yeah, 5-star, please.
We're
Also,
kind of climbing the ranks of the Church History podcast, by the way.
Oh yeah. We're getting
we
relevant.
rank.
Look, I'm not throwing shade at any other church history podcast, but it's just funny. They're all like, I would imagine they feel like they should start with some Mozart playing and, and somebody sipping tea. Welcome back to another episode of Posh Posh. I'm your host. And then you come to Art, and we're just like, I don't know.
Just
We
burping into the mic.
are the rapper riffraff of the Church History podcast.
Oh, I was thinking like the special needs class.
No.
I think we have some pretty different opinions of what our show
What we
is
are.
like. Yeah.
Like riffraff's got that line, which I feel like is our motto. It's like, my main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody.
with the shark teeth. Clank, clank, clank.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for riding with us, team. We will talk to you guys next week. We love you bunches, and we will chat real soon.
God bless
Keep
you.
it real.